Oi you, it's time for another episode of Dorothy and the Dealer. Let's tune into the conversation.
Every time you're asked to think of a song, Mitch, what do? You go into your
old
school.
I just have these old songs, from like I remember that swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry
Sweet
me
Chariot,
home.
isn't it?
Is it Sweet Chariot?
Yes, swing low, sweet chariot,
coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet.
Honestly,
chariot.
every now and then I think
It's only because I have
God.
that husky, chesty voice at the moment.
Every time we sing, I'm like, thank God we don't do this for a living.
Well, lots of people have actually commented and said my singing is very good, and I should go.
I
Yeah.
don't think.
And I should
Kirby's
go and
sitting
do
there-
some lessons.
No,
and like,
Kirby's sitting
you
there
should go,
going.
Mitch. Honestly, you got a bit of a. You actually have a bit of a.
I think they're
a
maybe
bit of- you got a bit of Barry White there.
encouraging the lesson part rather than the good voice part.
You got a bit of Barry White. Okay.
So what were we going to talk about today? We're
I
going to
think
talk
the,
about
I think
relationships,
people want
right?
to talk about relationships.
Relationships. So we're going to give a few. Like
All I want to start by saying that relationships are fucking difficult, no matter what.
they're both.
Oh yeah, they are. But that's what that's what's difficult is they're both pleasure and pain, and they become more difficult the more you think it's fucking got to be pleasure.
The more you're thinking and trying for the pleasure,
the more pain you're going to get.
the more pain you're going to get. Right.
You've got to be able to maintain in the moment what the fuck is happening, but just know who you are.
Well, the thing is that it's people think that. Oftentimes the illusion is that you think that you're going to have a relationship. It's all just going to be rosy, and it's not something that you've got to work on. But actually, it's important and imperative to work on it because of the fact that you're a growing, evolving human being, as is your partner. So it's about doing that together.
Yeah.
And finding the space as you grow together.
Yeah.
So anyway, what we will talk about then today is the three main ways that people can mess up their relationship.
Sure.
And then also, by the opposite, the three main ways that you can have a fulfilled and conscious, I suppose, relationship. Yeah. Okay. Number one. I think number one is what we talk about often, right?
Yeah.
In terms of relationships, is giving up your values.
Mm-hmm.
One of the worst things that you can do in a relationship is give up your values.
Well, I think let's backtrack a little on that. I think one of the worst things you can do in a relationship is to get into a relationship not knowing what your values are.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why you don't value yourself. What you're doing is you're valuing the partner, and you perceive that their job is to make you feel valued.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so you think you fall in love. You think you're falling in love with a person because they make you feel special and important, and they listen to you, and but the truth about it is that nobody makes you feel that. You feel that. But if you understand what is important to you, and you get into a relationship understanding what makes you feel those things, and that they are important to you, and you're able to declare that to the partner, you won't give them up. Because we always seem to have these honeymoon periods. When people get into relationships, they have honeymoon periods for a certain amount of time, and then suddenly they're not themselves anymore, and they become unhappy, and they're in the same relationship they just left, and they've just moved into another one. But it's if they look through time, it's a lineage of these relationships, and that's because people don't value themselves as they get into the relationship. They don't understand who they are and what they bring to the what they're bringing to the table.
So explain to me what that looks like, and explain to me what that is like, because one of the things that, like,
Well, I put it to you. You explain to me what it is.
what do you mean?
You explain it to me. What do I mean?
No, what I mean is, what I'm trying to get is, what I'm trying to get to is, you've said about, what we've said is one of the things that you can do to that messes up the relationship is give up on your values, right? So you're saying a lot of people do that before they even get into the relationship because they don't know who they are.
That's
they
right.
don't know what they bring to the table. So
they have no value.
yes, so they have, oh, great, that's a good way to explain it. So giving up on your values is that you have no value. So you place the value on the other person and therefore expect or have a concept that the other person is actually going to provide to you what you perceive is missing or what you perceive you need to live a fulfilling life or to be, a fulfilled person.
Yeah, so you actually have the value in the other person.
The values in the other person.
And then what happens is, not consciously, but subconsciously for the other person, is that the other person feels as if they're responsible for your value.
And your happiness.
But they're also responsible for theirs. And that's too much for them.
It's a lot to handle.
And that's not why you get it. That's not, you don't get into a relationship to place your value on another person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's just a conscious shift. It's just oh fuck, okay. Because this is how relationships work anyway. That's literally the mechanics of a relationship. It's all to do with value systems.
The whole thing's value systems. That's why we started with this. So I think that the best way to, even though like what we were going to do is talk a little bit about what messes your relationship up and what actually makes it work on the reverse side of that. I think we have to talk about that to make this point stick, right?
Yep.
So getting into a relationship, you've got to get clear on who you actually are.
Yep.
So whether you're in a relationship already or whether you're single at the moment, it actually doesn't matter because you can do this exercise anyway. But you've got to get clear on who you are. And getting clear on who you are means knowing what your values are, knowing what lights you up, what inspires you, what makes your heart beat, and what is important to you and what is of value to you.
Yeah.
And when you can bring that into the relationship and you're in that space in the relationship, then what happens is you don't feel so inclined to give up your values.
Yeah.
So knowing who you are is the key to having the relationship. And what we say this all of the time. So one of the things that we, especially at the beginning, especially when we first started doing this, we had a lot of people come to us saying, I would love how do I manifest my ideal partner? How do I manifest this, this person that, is my ideal, in a relationship. And so oftentimes they'd come and say things like, I wrote down all the things that I want him to have.
Yeah.
All the things I want my partner to have.
Right.
And instead of writing, and what happens is that if you write down all the things you want your partner to have, if you don't do that for yourself, if you don't recognize what you bring to the table, if you got this imaginary partner, you'd feel so insecure that partner wouldn't last very long. Because you'd literally be like subconsciously getting them out of your life because it would make you feel less than.
Right.
So people forget that it's not about asking and writing what you want in a partner. It's about recognizing what you have in yourself.
So here's a cool way to recognize what you have in yourself, right?
Yeah.
Write down everything you want in a partner.
Yeah.
And then become that.
Yeah. Or recognize where you are that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Write down everything you want in a partner and recognize right now where you are that.
Where you are that.
And be that.
Yeah.
And that's when you be that, that's when you will attract towards you whatever is necessary to help enhance those attributes and to help to enhance those qualities that you're bringing to the relationship.
100%. So I think that's a good way to think about relationships. Is a relationship is designed to enhance who you are, not complete who you are. Yeah. So,
and that's not a difficult task. And even if you're in a relationship, right?
Oh, to do that task.
Yep.
Yeah.
Write down everything and you're fucking struggling with your partner. Write down everything you want your partner to be.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're struggling with them, and then be those things.
Yeah.
Right? And then you don't have any expectation on the other person.
Yeah. Well, that actually leads us to number 2, right? So the first thing is that if you're going to mess up your relationship if you give up on your values.
Yeah.
And the answer and the response to that is to actually know what your values are.
Yeah.
Because so many people get into relationships or lose themselves in relationships because they don't know what their values are. And they don't, so therefore they're not living them. So the second thing then is you're going to mess up your relationship if you have an expectation on your partner to provide what you need, that you have an expectation on your partner to give you the things that you perceive are missing. You have an expectation on your partner to complete you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you were saying there that the expectations on what I interrupted you. You were saying something about expectations on partner. I thought.
Well, when you write down all the things that you want in a partner, and you become those things or recognize where you are those things, then you don't have any expectation on your partner.
No.
Because people get into relationships and they become expectations, not relationships. You know, I expect you to understand this about me. I expect you to respect this about me. I expect you to listen to me about this, you know. And that's not what relationships are about. That's bullshit.
So if
that's a dictatorship.
What would you
It's
say
not a
to someone
democracy.
who's like, yeah, but my partner never this and my partner never that?
So you tell them, write down what you want your partner to be and be those things.
So it's exactly the same.
Yeah,
then,
because
the
it's not
answer.
up to them.
Yeah.
No one can fill your gaps.
Yeah.
And if they are filling your gaps, then you're not in a relationship.
Yeah.
No one can fill your gaps. That's not you have your gaps are your fucking gaps. So you're asking them to be something that you're not willing to be.
Yeah.
You're asking them to do something for you that you're not fucking willing to
So
do.
therefore, you don't have any expectation on yourself, and you don't have. Therefore, you're not taking responsibility
Yep.
for the part that you play. So the key to stepping up in terms of a relationship is doing that. Then is to, rather than having expectations on your partner, have those expectations on yourself, and take responsibility. Because this here, responsibility, I say it all the time, responsibility is the greatest form of empowerment. Because when you're responsible, you're empowered. And the thing that is least attractive in a partner is when they're not empowered and when they're disempowered. Because what happens is they're looking for you to provide them with that power. And that becomes what's it called? Repulsive.
Yeah.
Becomes repulsive in a partner because
Yeah.
you feel like, well, the person I met wasn't like this. You know, I wasn't attracted to this in the first place. Don't have that expectation on me to provide it. You're strong, you're intelligent, you're smart, you're et cetera, instead of expecting. So expecting that in yourself breeds responsibility, and responsibility breeds empowerment. And empowerment of two individuals in a relationship is what's important. Now, when you're not doing that, when you're not being responsible, you're not being empowered. When you're being disempowered, what you're doing is you're taking on their values, or you're having expectations. And so therefore, instead of there being two individuals coming together to have a relationship, you've got individuals who are molding together and becoming the one person. And that's not what relationships are about. They're not about becoming one person. It's having two people that are in a relationship. So it's really about owning who you are, and when you own who you are, the other person complements that rather than completes it. Yeah.
That's
okay.
exactly right.
So the third...
So you're meeting on level playing ground.
100%.
And the other thing is that encourage your partner to do the same thing.
Yeah. And you encourage your partner by doing this, to do the same thing, by not disempowering them.
Yeah.
And by not taking on board also their expectations. You have to step up and understand that the part that you play is in who you are. And in that, you support and challenge your partner all of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, the last one is, do you know what? This was a hard one for me to learn, because I used to expect people, just in general in my life, to like know what I was feeling. And I expected, if I have to tell them that I want X, Y, Z, well, then they obviously don't care about me. So it was how I scapegoated, not allowing myself to get close to anybody. And so one of the biggest issues in relationships is having that whole crystal ball scenario.
Why should I have to tell you? You should already know that.
You should already know.
If you loved me, you'd know that.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I was so much like that because I thought that people just – I don't know why. I think that I thought people just needed to totally understand and totally see that.
Well, you expect the other person to be you.
Yes, in a way, another version of you. That everybody's got that. Like if I want attention, somebody must also want that. So why are they not showing me that? Do you know what I mean? Like,
and then on top of that,
forgetting that everyone's got different values.
You would never want the other person to be you because
Of course.
Because you're actually repulsed. We're all repulsed by half of ourselves. Yeah. So that's why you would never want to go out with yourself, because you're repulsed by half of yourself. You actually need the other person to only be sharing a certain amount of values.
Yeah.
And have, you know, a proportion of values that are very different to your values, because that's what makes the relationship interesting. You're not going out with the person, you're going out with their value systems. You have aligned values and you got to maintain those aligned values. And to maintain those aligned values, you have to know what the fuck your values are.
Yeah.
And people go, I already know what my values are. No, you don't. Knowing what your values are is sitting down and actually pulling out a paper and pen or your iPad or whatever and writing down what your fucking values are.
Yeah.
Write down what they are. And then write down beside each value why it's important to you.
Yeah. And that's an exercise we give people all the time. Write down your values. Mm-hmm. Write down what you think your partner's values are. Mm-hmm. Write down, get your partner to do that for themselves, and then write down what they perceive your values are, and then compare notes and go, oh my God, I didn't even realise I had that value and I was giving that up for this relationship, you know. So the key then is in this not crystal balling, and this was a big lesson for me, is to really know how to communicate in terms of your values.
Yeah.
So if you know what your values are, and you don't have any expectations on your partner, then what you do is you have to communicate in terms of your values. Like understanding that the person that you're with is not meant to just guess that. Mm-hmm. You're meant to assist them to know who you are and know what's important to you by communicating in that. And it's funny, like with all of these are rules for any area of your life, with your kids.
And with any person.
With any person. But they're very, very prevalent in relationships, because this is where we blame our partner for not magically understanding who we are.
Another cool exercise is write down everything you're blaming your partner. I blame John for blah. I blame Mary for blah. And write down everything you're blaming them for, and then rub out their name and write your name in. Because you're not blaming them for not being something. You're not doing it.
Yeah.
You don't want to own it. So you put the blame on the closest host, which is normally your partner.
Yeah. So the ultimate thing, though, is where we came to from where we started with this, is that relationships are work. They're not meant to be. They're pleasure and pain. Mm-hmm. That going into a relationship thinking it's going to be rainbows and sunshine and it's going to be, they're just going to complete me and it's just going to be perfect. It's just not going to work,
oh,
right?
Fuck no.
So understand who you are, know what you bring to the table, have the expectation on yourself and be responsible rather than blaming, because therefore you're empowered. So be empowered in your relationship. Understand you're an individual having a relationship. You are not the relationship. Mm-hmm. And then finally, don't crystal ball it. Understand how to communicate in terms of your values, and that's going to be the key to having a fulfilled relationship.
Sure is. Even if you live the most extraordinary life, there is always more to learn. This is why tens of thousands of people are using MJB Seminars techniques to hack their consciousness and bridge the gap from where they are to where they actually want to be.
MJB Seminars use cutting-edge transformational processes that are science-based and backed to help people break through subconscious barriers and limiting beliefs in order to reset, reboot, and live inspired. If you'd like to know more today, Google search MJB Seminars Bridge the Gap. Click on the first link and watch the video.
Now, for simply watching the video, you will also receive a complimentary coaching session with one of our master coaches valued at over $600 to help you get traction in your life today. Remember, live life inspired.